Hey guys, Brian Stevens here with the National Real Estate Post and Mortgage Shots. Hope you're all having a good time and a good day and getting ready for Christmas here. We got a whole bunch of great end of year stuff that we want to talk about, and I want to give you some reasons why I think next year is going to be significantly improved upon this year. Now, here's a little caveat to this whole bugger. Is that it's going to sound like it's bad news, however, it's not. Now, one last note here. If you're thinking about joining our team as a loan officer and find out what we do differently, we crowdsource amongst other things so we can find the best ideas in the shortest distance between us and those transactions. Reach out by giving me a ring over here at 707-330-1272 or in any other capacity on which form of social media you're watching this at. We're simulcasting it, so I don't know. That's part of the solution. Anyways, let's get moving on to some of the stuff that we could be talking about. Actually, Grant, no, you know what? I am going to change it. Oh, maybe not. Hold on a second. Oh, no, I don't know if you guys can see how I'm simulcasting. Let's get it right about there. Hold on a second. What you're watching right now, guys, this is called OBS. It's Open Broadcaster, and it's a way that you can simulcast just to prove I wasn't lying to you. And it had reconfigured itself, so I want to see if I can get that sucker pretty close to where I want it to be. Not perfect, but because we're live, we're going to go forward with this. Okay, again, okay, share and subscribe, obviously. Let's jump into this thing here. This graph, specifically, I want to illustrate one thing. It's not necessarily our unemployment level, we're going to get to that, but I want you to look at the vertical gray bars. Now, the vertical gray bars kind of have a certain level of symmetry to them, don't they? They kind of go, they stop. They go, they stop. Well, this graph is going to take us back to 1960 to today. So we have a 65 plus year sample size. And what this tells me is approximately every 10 years, as we've talked about ad nauseum over the years, if you've been following this, we have a recession. Yes, those vertical gray bars are recessions. So if we go over to the far right hand where we see that very, very steep incline, that's going to be from COVID. That's when everybody was unemployed overnight. Remember sitting in your bed on a Thursday for no good reason? That's what that recession looks like. It was quick up, quick back, and back to the norm, almost as if it didn't exist. In fact, that recession was so small that we can go ahead and dismiss that as an anomaly, which means we go back to the 2008 recession, and we have the largest period without a recession over the past 65 years. And one more time, to be redundantly redundant, in fact, if we were to go back nearly 100 years, we'd find this graph of 10-year increments of having recessions. It would pull through for that entire time. The fact that we've gone 20 years without a recession right now means, well, that it seems to me we're long overdue for one. And again, if we look at the COVID recession on the right-hand side of this graph, you could tell if you took it out, there is a logic that goes to where the market was prior to COVID and post-COVID. And of course, we're seeing ourselves moving up into a much better area. And we have a number of different graphs and different analytics that would suggest that a lot of things, including housing, including sales, including inflation, they all reflect the 2008 recession, though we've got there an entirely different way. And because we've gone 20 years without a recession, it would seem to me that we're going to have another one. So I want to put an overlapping graph here to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. Again, we could start looking at inventory numbers, number of months inventory, time it takes to sell a property. They're all very similar to 2008. Property values increasing. Look at the 2008 recession. Do you see how values went up? Just remember how they went up through the roof? We've seen that, but even more so right now. But check out this graph, and I want you to kind of ask yourself why we're pulling it up. Okay, so I gave a certain level of opacity to this. What you're looking at is the sale of heavy trucks. Isn't that interesting? So if I just take this graph, and if we were to shift everything a little over to the left, do you notice how it perfectly tracks our recessions, our financial crisis? And this is heavy trucks, 18-wheelers, Peterbilts, Volvos, you know what I'm talking about. And look at what's taken place with the sale of heavy trucks. They've actually gone negative. Okay, so why do we bring this up? Well, if heavy trucks track our recessions, track our inventory, and track housing, and if we have indicators right now that suggest heavy trucks are finding their lowest sales that we've had in nearly 35 years, then I would say this is yet another canary in the coal mine that we're going to find ourselves in a housing recession, and we're going to find ourselves with property values actually going negative for only the third time in the last 80 years. This isn't an end-all indicator, but it certainly is one that is oftentimes overlooked, but it makes sense. People aren't buying heavy trucks when they're not building, when they're not shipping, when they're not moving, when they're not digging, and those are times of recession. So looking more closely at this, we go back to 2010 here. We see a high level, quick drop in heavy truck sales. High level, a quick drop. And then we go back to 2021. Well, actually, yeah, we go to 2021. We see a massive, massive drop off in the first quarter of 2020 and the last quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. Why is that? Well, we remember that. That was COVID. Look at what we have going on right now. We are starting to see a more compact period of heavy truck sales slowing. This is us trying to prop our economy up right now. This is us trying to prop up the commerce across our country, and it doesn't seem to be working. What we're going to see next is going to be a significant shift. Remember, 20 years without a recession. We're going to see a significant shift in 2026 and 2027. And that's going to see houses sitting even longer in spite of interest rates being lower. We've already seen what the Federal Reserve has tried to do, and it's having absolutely no effect. In fact, I'm going to show you it's had a negative effect on housing. They've shot all the bullets that they have to shoot. And what's going to take place right now is the market is going to take over and say, thank you very much for your intervention. We don't like, want, or need that anymore. We are going to make the appropriate corrections to the housing market with or without your participation. And that's exactly what heavy truck sales are showing us right now. How can I tell you this? Well, foreclosures have jumped by 21% in November. Remember we were looking at October where they jumped up by 20%? Now they're up by 21%, and this cannot be overlooked. Foreclosure activity in November was 21% higher than the same period last year, continuing a trend this year of rising levels of defaults, auctions, and bank repossessions. We're still kind of near the floor level, but repossessions and auctions, repossessions of cars and auctions and defaults on properties are going up in a drastic way. Again, another canary in the coal mine suggesting that we're going to see a massive price correction, which is the only thing that could help your business. Data firm Atom, by the way, these guys are really good, reported that foreclosure activity was the highest in Delaware, South Carolina, Nevada, New Jersey, and Florida. Florida makes sense. Nevada makes sense. I'm not sure what's going on in Delaware. New Jersey never seems to be doing good. South Carolina, what a beautiful state. Whether the jump in foreclosures is going to bring more housing supply to the market depends upon local laws and market trends. Those local laws are which are going to forestall some of the foreclosures that need to take place. Let's hope that we don't follow what HUD has done over the past, 25 years of allowing people to stay in houses, sometimes upwards of years before those foreclosures go through. Those foreclosures are inventory. They will drive prices down, and that will bring buyers back to the table, bringing a certain level of sanity back to the market. High cost of goods is causing consumers to spend less for holidays. This is according to CNBC. Let me ask you this. We got Christmas just a couple of days away. What does your spending look like? I'll tell you for me personally, and I think this is funny as hell. I didn't even think of it. My two older kids have moved out, right? I got my youngest one who's 18, so she's basically an adult too. Our Christmas tree is wildly smaller than it used to be, and our presents on there are way less. That has a heck of a lot to do with the fact that my kids have moved out, but it also is the shrinkflation approach to how we're approaching this industry. The latest CNBC All-American Economic Survey found that the high cost of goods has emerged as a major factor affecting how much shoppers spend and where they're spending their money. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Again, what do your spending habits look like right now? Overall, 41% of the Americans plan to spend less money for the holidays this year. It's 6 points higher than it was a year ago. Again, spending less, pulling back, recession, inevitability. Among those spending less, 46% blame the higher cost of goods. In spite of the fact that we have inflation under 3% right now, yeah, that's right, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, a 10% increase from the survey done in 2024. Listen, we can get all the analytics on inflation from everybody till the crows or the roosters come roosting, right? That type of thing. I think I mixed my metaphors. But here's the point. if we're not spending money, that means me and you are feeling the inflation that those in the know, our politicians and those who are putting together inflationary numbers in the different agencies are telling us doesn't exist, when in fact it does exist. Okay, so spending more due to inflation, spending less due to inflation. 36% people are spending more due to inflation. In other words, they're getting what they were getting last year, but they're spending more for it. 36% of folks are saying, yes, I am still getting the same things and I'm willing to spend the additional money for it. However, 46% say they are spending less due to inflation. And I got to tell you, eating out right now, traveling right now, and of course the holidays, I mean, we've tightened our belt a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of other folks have. Again, when we tighten our belt, what does it do? It slows down seasonal hiring, it slows down the economy, and it really kind of starts to bring on what? The inevitable, which is going to be another recession, which, by the way, is always figured out retrospectively. I'll bet you money, donuts to dollars, my friends, that we're in a recession right now. Almost 70% of people say that the prices are higher now, and it's affecting people both who are spending more and who are spending less in a much bigger way than ever. Do you agree with that? I certainly do. The affordability issue clearly is weighing on consumers' minds, with 61% reporting they believe prices are rising faster than their incomes. I believe that, including 74% of those with incomes between $30,000 and $50,000 and 78% who are earning less than $30,000. Man, that's tough sledding right now if you're earning less than $30,000. And yet we find ourselves with a median income at about $46,000. Not too far from what the average is. Overall, 41% of Americans say they plan to spend less this year. 42% are saying that they will spend about the same, and 16% say they're going to spend more. Who are those 16%? I think we know. Americans generally say they will spend less each year, but this year's number is 6 points higher than from a year ago, and it's the biggest since the inflation surged. The inflation, I love that. Since the inflation surged in 2022. Look, guys, the reason I'm bringing this up is twofold. One, it's spurring on what we need, and that is a housing correction. And two, we have to change the mindset of people, letting them know that they can, in fact, purchase homes. The only way for that to take place is for people to be able to afford homes. And upwards of 70% of people in this country right now cannot afford to buy the median house. This is a wildly, wildly important number because, as I've said time and time again, if I can't afford the ticket, I don't care who's playing at the concert. The survey found 60% of the public is pessimistic about the current state of the economy and pessimistic about the outlook, the highest level since December 2023. The percentage who are optimistic now and about the future ticked down by about 3 points. So much of what we do with our economy has everything to do of how we perceive it. It's kind of like, and I've always laughed about this, the National Association of Home Builders, they always check the sentiment of home builders. What is the sentiment of home builders? Are they feeling happy and wonderful about things? Or are they feeling sad and pessimistic? And I always thought that was a ridiculous survey to take. But the truth of the matter is home builders are going to build more homes when they feel good about things. And similarly with consumers, they're going to spend more money and do the things they need to do to get the economy going again if they feel good. The fact that across the board, all Americans are spending less, not looking at houses, and our sales numbers have fallen off a cliff, on the surface sounds like a bad thing. But you see, the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be for everybody. Frankly, we need to hit a bottom before we can start to claw our way out of the hole that we're in right now. So what appears on the surface to be negative numbers, to me personally, is just getting the inevitable out of the way. My analogy that I've always used is, if you had to chop your arm off and you had an axe and you had a butter knife, you might start with a butter knife because it doesn't seem like it would be as bad. But boy, once you got to those tendons, you'd be begging for the axe. I say let's have an axe approach to our economy right now, get it over with, flush out all the foreclosures, see house prices drop by 20 to 40%, bring those buyers back to the table with reasonable interest rates between the 6s and 8s. Yes, I said it, 6s and 8s, and that is reasonable. And everything will return to what it needs to be after 20 years of intervention from government policies that have put us on paths that are unrecoverable. Home builder Lennar is cutting its prices by 10%. By the way, I think Lennar has actually cut them by 20%. This could be an old number. I could swear I saw 20%, but this is precisely what I'm talking about. You see, when Lennar is dropping their prices by 10%, because they're such a big home builder, they're going to affect the price of houses everywhere. Lennar is in every state. Pulte is going to have to follow suit. All the other large builders are going to have to follow suit. But most importantly, those who own houses are going to have to follow suit as well. Why is that? Because if I'm looking for a house to buy, and I could buy a brand new house with all the energy efficiency stuff that smells like a new house, just like a new car, I'm taking that one over your dirty old house, right? So pre-existing homes are going to have to drop their prices as well. We cannot overestimate the importance of what Lennar did here. And I got to tell you, I've read a number of things from the Lennar CEO, and he's just saying, listen, people can't buy houses at these prices. So we're going to have to do something about it. I'm sure the new home builder sentiment has just tanked right now. And this is the last resort type of action any new home builder wants to take. Dropping everything across the board because there goes their profits. But if you remember back in 2008, this buried new home builders. I was living in Vacaville and I saw that they had graded the ground. They had actually paved the roads, put in all the infrastructure to frame the houses, did all the foundations, and then they stopped. And weeds grew up and they sat there for a couple of years until another builder came in, bought for pennies on the dollar the lot that was owned by another builder, and then of course once the economy changed, built those properties, and I'm sure made a ton of money. But that's where builders are at right now. They're just trying to find a way to stay afloat. And the way for them to stay afloat right now is to drop prices, the action of last resort, and get rid of their existing inventory and free up those credit lines that they currently have. If they don't do this, they will be a casualty of tomorrow. Now, this is great for me and you if you're a loan officer, a real estate agent, or a buyer, because what this spells is affordability. Affordability will not come through lower interest rates. Affordability will only truly and completely come through lowering sales prices, which is happening across the country in droves and is going to pick up steam. And think about this if you're considering buying a house right now. Wouldn't you rather buy a house at a lower sales price than a lower interest rate? Well, why would you say that, Brian? Well, because a lower sales price comes with a lower tax base. And you can always refinance that interest rate, but you can't refinance your sales price. So prices dropping right now, buying and selling in a down market is going to be better than buying and selling in a low interest rate environment. This is important because a lot of sellers right now are saying, you know what, I'm going to hold on to my house until the market recovers. The only way the market recovers is if interest rates go down and then people bid prices up higher. And sure, you'll get a lower interest rate on your future forward purchase, but that's also going to come with a larger tax bill. And that ain't good for you, and it's not good for anyone. I'm telling you, the market we're going into, which is dropping, will bring the cost of acquisition and sales down to you, not only temporarily, but in the long run with your lower taxes. Think about that for a second. The home builder Lennar said they're going to cut the average price of their home by 10% last quarter amid weak demand from buyers struggling with, well, affordability and worries about the economy. In a quarter earnings report Tuesday, Lennar revealed that its average sales price was $386,000. Yikes! I thought that was in the fours. For home delivery in the 3-month period ending in November, that's down from $430,000. Yikes! In the same period last year, a cut of $44,000, and they're still dropping them. Listen, I told you guys a year ago that we're going to see a 40-50% drop in home prices. You guys all thought I was nuts. And I'm here to tell you right now that we're just warming up. And last I checked, nobody was talking about that but me. If you don't believe me, go back and watch my shows. I found this one pretty interesting. Opendoor settled $39 million with investors over its price algorithm issue. I just love these algorithms. Fintech companies to make everything faster, better, smarter, and cheaper isn't really doing it, nor has it ever. Remember that Opendoor, OfferPad, and Zillow almost went broke about 7 years ago because of their wild dependencies on these algorithms that saw the entire United States housing market as one unified market with absolutely no deviations whatsoever. Which I find interesting because even in my little town of Vacaville, which is Cowtown, California, the literal translation, We have multiple markets even in Vacaville, as you do in every city, parish, and county. So when we find problems with these algorithms, some people are surprised about it. I frankly want to know who's investing their money in these companies. If you missed it, Opendoor just settled for $39 million with investors over issues they had a few years ago related to its price algorithm, profit margin, and its availability to operate during the housing downturn. Do you remember the last housing downturn we had? What did Opendoor do? They scuttled all their contracts. They got out of absolutely everything, completely screwing buyers and sellers over because their algorithm wasn't set for a bad market. What'd your real estate agents do in the last bad market? They doubled down with you, didn't they? They doubled down with their listings. They doubled down with their buyers. What did Opendoor do? They ran for the freaking hills and broke contracts left and right. What did Zillow do? Same thing. What did OfferPad do? Same stinking thing. Listen, say what you will about all these real estate agents. They might drive you nuts, and some of them drive me nuts. But listen, you lenders, you're the same damn thing, as am I. Some drive us nuts as well. But the truth is we have been trying for years and years to get rid of real estate agents and mortgage loan officers with a better, faster, cheaper fintech alternative, and it has failed every single time. Because at the end of the day, that local real estate agent and that local lender, they're in choking distance. And this might sound a little cheesy, they actually give a shit. Imagine that. Mortgage rates move higher after the Fed cut rates. Whoa, what? Rates went higher when the Fed's cut rates, causing loan demand to drop? Are you suggesting that the Federal Reserve, in their attempt to get the market going, actually screwed things up? No, that didn't happen. What do you think? We talk about this so much, it's just not even worth really bringing up. I told you they've already shot all their bullets. The average contract interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with a conforming loan balance at $806,500 is less. It's increased to 6.38% from 6.33. Wow, rates actually went up. How in the hell does that happen? Can somebody explain that to me in the comments down below? Can multiple people explain that to me in the comments down below? Applications to refinance home loans, they fell 4% last week and are 80% higher than they were this time 1 year ago because rates are generally lower and the people with the 8s are going to go to the 6s. I get all that stuff. But I'm telling you right now, for the next Fed report, if you're looking for solutions from them, I'm telling you it ain't coming because there is nothing they can do. Thank God. The suburbans of St. Louis are the most affordable place in the United States to buy a home. Did you know that? I wonder why that is. I got to tell you this, though. You see, number 2 on the list is Ferguson, Missouri. I have a good friend of mine. His name is Joe Bear. And we went out to Ferguson, Missouri, to his favorite hamburger place. And I saw this totally awesome bike store. They sell like what I like. I like touring bikes. Kind of a real small subculture, and it was awesome. And then we went into a little bar there. It was called Marley's. If Marley is still in Ferguson, that means something to me because my daughter's name is Marley. The cutest little damn coffee shops and wine bar I've ever seen in the world. And I bring this up because when people think of, Belafonte, Ferguson, Detroit, maybe, I don't even know, Bayou Cane, I don't know, but Broussard, West Muffin, Pennsylvania, a lot of these towns that get a bad rap, a lot of these cities get a bad rap, you just have to go there. They're actually pretty damn cool. I told Joe, I'm like, I can't believe how cute and quaint Ferguson is. I'm like, they made it look on the TV like this whole damn town was burning down. He goes, yeah, it was those 2 blocks right over there. I said, what about everything else? He goes, none of that was shown on the news. I'm like, dude, I remember, though, the Ferguson riots. It was just this mess. He goes, it was right there and right there. It was nowhere else. He goes, they have this great little wine bar. He goes, his wife and her girlfriend, they were at the wine bar during that whole thing. I'm like, are you telling me that everything I saw on the news about the problems with Ferguson was a bunch of BS? And he goes, absolutely. Ferguson is cute. It's quaint. It's got its own charm. And it has a bad rap for all the wrong reasons. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is if you are thinking about investing in rental properties, and you live in some of the higher cost cities, you might want to look at some of the cities on this list because they are a hell of a lot nicer then you